The Wii Sports series has had a special place in my heart since childhood, being the go-to game whenever we had guests over. Whether it was bowling or boxing, it never failed to provide hours of entertainment to a room of family and friends. Even with Wii Fit, I would religiously boot it up daily to see my scores for the sports improve, getting a rush of dopamine as I compete against the saves I created for family members. Unsurprisingly, I was very excited for the release of Switch Sports, and having played it for a couple weeks now, it's pretty fun overall, but something felt lacking, and it wasn't just the number of sports available. The first Wii Sports title is a game that has been played perhaps more than any other 7th generation title, due in large part to the fact that it came bundled with the Wii console itself in every territory except Japan. This reach extended to non-gamers, and even my parents played a couple tennis matches when I got my Wii for Christmas. Its simplicity worked so well to its advantage, but there were several evolutions in the series that really helped solidify Wii Sports as a franchise. Originally, the arenas in Wii Sports existed in a void, disconnected from each other as they focused on the gameplay, and the environments simply served that purpose. However, that simple relationship between location and sport transformed with the introduction of Wuhu Island. Each sport had its own dedicated space relative to everything else. Some would take place in Wuhu Town itself, whereas others might see you cruising the beautiful ocean waters or flying around the Great Mecca Wuhu, the semi-active volcano that watches over the island. These different perspectives of Wuhu provided by running or skydiving made it feel like the gameplay and environments served each other. The hub for all the activities in Switch Sports just doesn't provide the same feeling, and its name Spoko Square has nothing on Wuhu. Wii Sports Resort is the most memorable title in the series for me, but I wanted to make sure my nostalgia wasn't holding it up too highly in my head. So I booted up the game, and there's just a me quietly sitting in an aircraft. No title screen, no menu, just the sounds of the plane, and a rendition of a familiar tune gently playing from the speakers. At your ready, the pilot flashes you a thumbs up, and your me gets up from their seat and dives out the plane. A bright blue sky emerges from the flash of white light as you tumble downwards into the clouds. As you break through them, you're treated to another view, your first glimpse of Wuhu Island. Your freefall continues with some motion control usage as your character holds the hands of the other skydivers, until you finally join them all in a formation, and then Wuhu Island made its first appearance in Wii Fit, debuting with the jogging game mode. Since then, it has been featured in Wii Sports Resort, Wii Fit Plus, Wii Fit U, and Pilot Wings Resort, serving as the main location for all of them. But the identity of the island was so strong and beloved by many that it even has tracks and battle maps in a couple Mario Kart games, and a stage in Super Smash Bros. Wuhu Island's longevity is astonishing, as it has had a presence in the aforementioned games that spanned a little over a decade since 2007, the most recent appearance being in 2018. So why is Wuhu Island so damn good? First and foremost, its geography allowed for so many unique sports to all believably take place. From skydiving to wakeboarding to playing basketball in an outdoor court next to Starboard Harbour, every sport had its own place to exist on the island. Even Mario Kart tracks and battle stages could be given a home thanks to its size. Spoko Square is incredibly limited on the other hand. Its area is a lot more contained, as it's surrounded by a city. It makes it difficult to imagine any cameos in other games or even the addition of air sports. It's just not a setting that can allow for that, or at least not in a way that makes sense organically without drastic changes. Appearances of Wuhu in other games sometimes came with graphical improvements. giving the town square, for example, a breath of new life with added detail that I wish was fully realised in the main series. But even in its simplest form, the island remains a visual delight. Wuhu Island has bite-sized descriptions about its landmarks, which you can collect in the Island Flyover game mode by picking up collectible green icons that explain a piece of the area's lore. You can discover that ancient writing is chiselled into the rocks of the cliffside ruins, or that the sand grains on Starry Beach are curiously shaped like stars, which are sold in bottles as souvenirs. You come to know the inner workings of Wuhu, and how the residents and visitors of this island spend their time. And it's for this reason the Island Flyover mode is one of Wii Sports Resort's greatest additions, making a home of this virtual space. Gathering the information points unlocks changes to your plane such as a blaster or a second seat, and collecting all 80 of them will reward you with your own private resort home. It's a small moment, but seeing your gameplay and dedication actually affect the island in such a way builds an even closer relationship. You're also able to experience Wuhu at different times in the day, from the sun-soaked daytime and evening twilight to a lively nighttime with people partying and hanging out. In Wii Fit U, the jogging mode will even take you through Wuhu Island during different seasons, breathing even more soul into this world. As you play through each of the 12 sports, you can unlock new modes by reaching certain scores, allowing you to play with friends or family locally, or even just having unusual modes to indulge in yourself, like the Speed Slice and Showdown modes for swordplay. I personally loved the amount of solo sports like archery, air, and water sports. Wii Sports Resort was the perfect casual game, whether you were playing with others or alone. I don't just attribute the greatness of Wii Sports Resort to Wuhu Island, however, but also another iconic Nintendo feature that was released with the Wii console, the Miis. These customizable avatars could be made to look like you, and there's been an abundance of games with Mii integration that would allow you to play as your character. It created a sense of continuity and identity, as this extension of you was able to be present in the games that you played. People are very creative with Mii making too, recreating their favourite game characters or forming works of art. There are just enough customizable options for the hair and face to allow players to be expressive, but not too many choices, which helps solidify a specific style associated with Mii characters. The simple, bright style of these avatars is also followed by Wuhu Island, matching even further with the creatures found in this virtual world so everything exists in sync. Both the Mii channel and the Wii Sports series became synonymous with the Wii platform, either one very likely being the first thing you boot up when you turn on your console for the first time. The Mii Plaza presented a home for your Miis, making them more personable as you grab them by the head to move them around and blow the whistle to line them up. Nintendo built upon this with games dedicated to the Miis, such as Tomodachi Life and Miitopia, which are centered around their strange lives and the relationships between them. It depicts them as weird little things with their own quirks and personalities, made even funnier when you make them resemble a friend or celebrity. Similar to Wuhu Island, the longevity of the Mii is genuinely outstanding. They've been a part of every Nintendo console since the Wii, and continue to make an appearance in games. The latest Mii-centric title, Miitopia, was released in the West only last year, which took Mii customization even further, while still retaining that distinct style and weaving their bizarre antics into a fantasy setting. Despite this, Nintendo seemed to be slowly moving away from the Miis. Mii creation is no longer its own app or channel visible on booting up the console. Instead, it's tucked away into the settings page. And with the addition of the Sportsmates avatars in Switch Sports, it really feels like the Miis have lost the standing they once had, especially in a series that they're most known for. This mix of the Sportsmates and Miis results in a weird disconnect, like a battle between the nostalgia of Nintendo versus the direction they're going in. Yes, Nintendo's willingness to innovate has been the driving force for much of their success, but that shouldn't mean fixing what isn't broken. The Sportsmates are quite bland in comparison to the freedom and variety of Mii customization, and implementing the capabilities of Miitopia's character design options would have been a lot more favourable. Plus, if all clothing and headgear options were available to the Miis, the unlockable fashion elements would have elevated them even further. Instead, we're left with only a few face structure options to pick from, ultimately killing off a large sense of individuality. You can of course unlock new hairstyles, eyebrows, and eye colours, but this should all be available at the start to allow the new sportsmates to be more distinct from each other from the get-go. This will change over time as players unlock more options, but unfortunately everyone's characters have largely looked the same in this first month of the game's release. Switch Sports, like the first Wii Sports game, is more focused on the actual activities themselves, with a new emphasis on playing online in a structured, competitive environment, which feels like a testament to the radical changes that gaming has gone through since Wii Sports was released. Spoko Square leans into an Olympic-type environment with modern facilities, and seems to be based in a major city, which is a huge contrast to Wuhu Island's more casual summer holiday setting. Cafes, food stalls, and shops can be found in the background of every arena in Switch Sports, constructing a very commercial space akin to a shopping mall. There are logos, signs, and brands that can be spotted throughout the facilities and items, which makes the space feel very business-like and sterile, in some ways like the realm of esports with all its investors, sponsors, and merch. The setting has departed from the casual charm of Wuhu, which formed its own identity without excessive branding. That's not to say the contemporary setting of Spocco Square is bad. In fact, it grew on me quite a bit while playing. But the drastic departure from Wuhu was a shock to the system, to say the least. That being said, I am glad they decided to stick with having a hub for the sports, with some tidbits of information during loading screens. This is nowhere near as compelling as Wii Sports Resort's pilot mode, however, which used gameplay and exploration as the method for uncovering the lore of this space. The game modes available in Switch Sports are also less imaginative than Resort, with a lot more focus on sports that are played competitively with other people. My favourite activities on Wuhu were often the ones that were solo, and focused on improving upon your own personal records and completing little lists of achievements if you wanted. Whether it's perfecting your archery skills, or cycling down to the beach, there's a tranquility to playing at your own pace. With online multiplayer, there's a kind of pressure and tension which I don't always want to be subject to, especially with a ranking system that will penalise you if you lose a match. In some ways, it feels like Switch Sports is more about playing against your friends rather than with them, unless you're playing locally. And for someone like me whose friends live far away, I really wish you could play on the same team with friends online. I would have appreciated more game modes like the 100-pin bowling or the table tennis return challenge. Just fun little ways of approaching the same sport in a different way. With only 6 base sports in comparison to the 12 that Resort offered, the content available already feels lackluster and could have been spruced up with a few more varied modes. One of the details I did notice was the different types of ground for the tennis courts, which would affect the way the ball would bounce off the surface. On the grass court, the tennis ball will bounce lower, and on the hard court, it would be higher. On the clay court, the ball also bounces higher, but moves slower overall, making rallies easier to maintain. The type of court you get is chosen at random, and adds a little more variation to your gameplay, which I can appreciate. Even the intro for Switch Sports is so much more flat and uninspired, as opposed to the friendly welcome you receive in Resort. Switch Sports just throws you into the main menu, then into character customization, and straight into the gameplay. It doesn't have the story or setup that the introduction to Wuhu Island had, and it could have been possible too. Spoko Square has a train station, so that same breathtaking first step into a new world could have taken place, as your character walked out onto the train platform. This feels like a huge missed opportunity on Nintendo's part, as one of the reasons Wuhu felt so cozy and welcoming was partly because they had those couple minutes at the start to build an attachment to the environment. It was a warm and inviting passage into a sports game, and Switch Sports could have really used something like that. Another decision I was a little disappointed in was the number of game modes at launch, and my disdain grows for Nintendo's new approach of drip-feeding game content over the course of a year or two. I really do miss the days where games were released with all their content from the start, or only creating DLC if significant additions are being made. So for all the video game trends that Nintendo chooses not to follow, it's a shame that they seem to be going down this path. I also feel like the introduction of the sports mates was unnecessary, and stand out more when Miis are still available. But with all that in mind, I still enjoy playing Switch Sports, even though it does seem like a huge step back from the groundwork that the series had already laid out years ago. With Wuhu, Nintendo had an incredibly strong foundation for building what could have been the best casual sports game in the series, and it makes me wonder how long we're going to see Spoko Square for, and if it will feature in another title. I think this series in general could benefit greatly from a level of free roam, with shops you can enter to buy items to customize your character and maybe even a personal living space. I'm surprised that Spoko Square didn't opt for a Splatoon-type hub, especially with its environments being so detailed, but perhaps this is what Nintendo has planned for this new space in the future, and we just haven't seen its full potential yet. I do think the new urban environment looks cozy in its own way, with its little coffee shops and bursts of greenery. I can see it being a great spot to hang out with friends online, lazing together in its bustling contemporary architecture. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss the relaxed, slower-moving atmosphere of the previous titles. The love that players have for Wuhu Island is undeniable, with a wiki dedicated to showcasing its history and secrets. I remembered it so fondly, and was ecstatic to see that it really is as good as my memory recalls. I hope we can see Wuhu Island once again in a new title, but until then, I'll be revisiting the games that we do have to feel at home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.